Behind Tennessee's image of country music, beautiful mountains, and warm southern charm, there is another side that rarely gets talked about, a side that is quieter, more remote, and slowly forgotten. Far from the glow of Nashville or the noise of Memphis, small towns are scattered across the state that seem to move in a different time. Places where access is limited, job opportunities keep shrinking, and young people leave without looking back. Here, it is not just distance that creates separation, but opportunity as well. And on this list, we will look at the most remote and most struggling towns in Tennessee, places where the future feels farther and farther away. When you enter Jellico, the first impression is not of a growing town, but of one left behind in the past. Located on the Tennessee-Kentucky border, Jellico once lived from the coal industry. But when that industry collapsed, the town lost its pulse with it. Today, the median household income in Jellico is only in the low 40,000s, far below the national average. Poverty is high, and job opportunities are very limited, mostly in small retail or low-paying local work. The crime rate here is also relatively higher than in other small Tennessee towns, adding to the sense that this place is struggling. What makes Jellico feel even worse is its location. Even though it is close to the interstate, the town still feels isolated, like a place people pass through but rarely choose as a destination. Ducktown has a darker story, a town that was once so busy, but now seems to carry the scars of its past. Located in the southeastern corner of Tennessee, near the Georgia border, Ducktown was once the largest copper industry center in the region. But that success came at a heavy cost. Decades of mining caused major environmental damage. At one point, the area was even called one of the most damaged landscapes in America. When the mining industry collapsed, what remained was not just a broken economy, but land that needed decades to recover. Today, the median household income in Ducktown is in the low 30,000s, with very limited job opportunities. Many residents depend on small jobs or have to leave town to make a living. Its remote mountain location makes the town feel truly far from everything. In the quiet mountains of Tennessee, Wartburg feels like a town moving slowly, too slowly. At first glance, the setting looks peaceful, thick forests, winding roads, and clean air. But beneath that, there is a fairly heavy economic reality. The median household income in Wartburg is in the low 30,000s, with high poverty and very limited job opportunities. Many residents depend on public sector work, small retail jobs, or long commutes to other towns. One especially striking fact is that the presence of a large prison facility in the area makes it one of the main employers, a sign that the local economy does not have many other options. Wartburg is not a broken town, but more like a town slowly losing momentum and still unable to find a way back. If Newport feels a little more alive than the towns mentioned earlier, do not be fooled. Behind its strategic location, the town faces some fairly complex problems. Set at the foot of the Great Smoky Mountains and crossed by an interstate, Newport should have major potential, but the reality is not that simple. The town once leaned on textile and manufacturing industries. When those sectors weakened, the effects lasted for years. Today, the median household income sits in the low 30,000s, with a fairly high poverty rate. Even more noticeable, Newport's crime rate is relatively higher than that of other small towns in Tennessee, creating the sense that the town is dealing with real social pressure. Its location is not completely remote, but it still feels trapped in a valley, both geographically and economically. Many opportunities exist outside the town, not within it. As a result, many younger residents choose to also leave in search of a clearer future. Meanwhile, Mountain City feels like a world apart from the noise of modern life. Its name sounds promising, but the reality is much quieter than you might expect. This is one of the most remote towns in Tennessee. Even reaching the nearest larger city takes a long drive through winding mountain roads. That isolation directly affects the economy. The median household income is in the low $38,000. With a fairly high poverty rate and limited job opportunities, mostly in small businesses or local services. There is one notable upside. The natural scenery around the town is genuinely beautiful, with the Appalachian Trail nearby. But like many other remote towns, natural beauty has not been enough to significantly lift the local economy. What stands out most in Mountain City is its pace, slow, and at times almost stagnant. If you only glance at Linden, it may seem like an ordinary small town. But once you look more closely, the reason it falls into the category of a worst remote town becomes very clear and very specific. First, the geographic isolation is real. Linden is not served by a major interstate, it is not near an economic center, and getting to a major city like Nashville can take more than 1.5 hours. That means commuting is not a realistic option for many residents. This immediately narrows job opportunities. Second, its economic base is extremely limited. The median household income is only around $47,000 with a high poverty rate of around 20% or more. There is no major industry, no large college, and almost no sector that is truly growing. Third, there is no economic buffer. Many other small towns still benefit from tourism, transportation routes, or proximity to a larger city. Linden does not have that. Once you really get into Celina, the reason it falls into the category of a worst remote town becomes clear little by little. Not because of one major problem, but because nearly every path to growth feels blocked. It sits in northern Tennessee near the Cumberland River, but that location actually makes it more isolated. There is no direct access to a major interstate, only winding 2-lane roads that take a long time to reach towns with better job opportunities. The trip to the nearest economic center can take more than an hour, which for many residents is not just far, but unrealistic as a daily routine. That lack of access is felt directly in the economy. With a median household income of only around $32,000 and a fairly high poverty rate, job options in Celina have barely developed. What remains are only small-scale local jobs, enough to survive, but hard to build a better life on. Up on the Cumberland Plateau, Jamestown looks like a quiet small town surrounded by nature. But that is exactly where the problem begins to show. This isolated beauty never truly turned into economic strength. In terms of location, Jamestown is not completely cut off, but it is still far from Tennessee's growth centers. There is no major interstate directly connecting it, and getting to a city with broader job opportunities takes quite a while. As a result, residents have limited economic mobility. Working outside town is not an easy option. Jobs are dominated by small sectors such as retail, local services, and a little nature-based tourism. There are attractions like the recreation areas around Big South Fork National River and Recreation Area, but their effect on the town's economy is still limited and tends to be seasonal. At first glance, Byrdstown actually looks like a town with promise. It sits near Dale Hollow Lake, one of the most beautiful lakes in the region. But the more closely you look, the more the real problem appears. The potential is there, but it has never truly turned into stable economic strength. Geographically, Byrdstown is very remote in northern Tennessee, far from interstate routes and major urban centers. Access to job opportunities outside the area takes a long time and is not practical for daily commuting. That leaves the local economy to stand on its own, even though its foundation is weak. Tourism here is seasonal, busy during vacation months, but quiet the rest of the year. That means local income is unstable as well. What makes Byrdstown feel especially troubled is its dependence on something that is never consistent. In the heart of Scott County, Oneida feels like a town that is still holding on, but barely growing. It sits in the hilly and fairly remote part of Appalachian Tennessee, which keeps access to major economic centers limited, even if it is not as extreme as some other towns on this list. Job options are dominated by small sectors like retail, local services, and some public work. There is no major industry truly pushing growth, and new investment is very limited. That means the town's economy keeps moving, but never really moves forward. Regional isolation also plays a role. Oneida is not close enough to a big city to benefit from its growth, but it is also not attractive enough to become an economic center on its own. As a result, many younger people choose to leave for broader opportunities, leaving behind an aging population. In West Tennessee, Parsons may not immediately feel as remote as the Appalachian towns, but that is exactly where the trap is. Its location looks more open, yet economically it remains narrow and limited. Parsons is not far from regional routes and is even near the Tennessee River. But that closeness has not automatically brought growth. The town is not part of any major flow of industry or trade, so job opportunities remain concentrated in small sectors: local retail, basic services, and a small amount of light manufacturing. The median household income in Parsons is in the mid-$36,000, with a fairly high poverty rate. What makes it feel especially troubled is the lack of direction for growth. There is no dominant sector expanding, no surge of investment, and no strong draw that could attract new residents. Decaturville presents the image of a small town that looks quiet, but is actually trapped by some very specific limitations. In terms of location, Decaturville is not as isolated as the mountain towns, but it is still far from major economic centers. There is no direct access to a major interstate, and getting to towns with broader job opportunities still takes a long time. That means residents have limited economic mobility. It is not close enough for easy commuting, but not strong enough to stand on its own. What places Decaturville in the worst category is its awkward position. It is not remote enough to have a strong identity like a nature tourism town, but it is also not strategic enough to attract investment. As a result, growth is barely noticeable, and younger generations are slowly leaving the town. In the narrow valley surrounded by mountains in eastern Tennessee, Erwin looks more alive than many towns on this list. But the more you look, the clearer it becomes why it still belongs in the category of worst remote towns. Not because it has no activity, but because its growth is very limited. Geographically, Erwin sits along a fairly strategic route in Appalachia, even near a regional transportation corridor. But that position is not strong enough to attract major industry or significant investment. Access exists, but it does not create truly broad opportunities for local residents. Interestingly, Erwin has a unique history, including the well-known story of a circus elephant execution in the early 20th century, which often becomes a small point of interest. But like nature and history in many other small towns, that is not enough to serve as a long-term economic foundation. Unlike the Appalachian towns that feel extremely isolated, Savannah in western Tennessee has something that seems promising: a location along the Tennessee River and a fairly strong history. But that is exactly where the contrast appears. The potential is there, but the impact is limited. Savannah is not completely remote, but it is still far from major economic centers. There is no direct connection to a major interstate that could drive business flow or large industry. As a result, job opportunities in town are still dominated by small sectors such as retail, local services, and some activity tied to historical tourism. Even though the town is known for being near historic sites like the Battle of Shiloh, the tourist flow is not consistent enough to significantly lift the local economy. In the middle of Tennessee's quiet forests and rolling hills, Hohenwald looks like a small town that is stable, not hit too hard, but also far from growing. And that is exactly why it still belongs in the category of worst remote towns. Geographically, Hohenwald is fairly remote. There is no direct access to a major interstate, and its distance from economic centers like Nashville makes daily commuting difficult. The town sits in an unfavorable position, too far away to benefit from a larger city's growth, but not strong enough to build its own economy. Hohenwald does have some small appeal, including a quiet community and closeness to nature. But like many other small towns, that is not enough to create real growth. The population tends to remain stagnant, and younger generations often choose to leave.